Hey now, and welcome to the City Off Campus podcast with your two favorite hosts, Sammy Sommerfeld and Jack McFarland. We've got a special guest today. We've got Steve Mayer. He's the Chief Content Officer and Executive Vice President of the NHL. So thank you for joining us. How's everything with you?
Everything is great, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're excited to have you. So my first question for you is, I want to start talking about this past summer and your experience with the NHL bubble. In the pre-planning of the bubble, how were you appointed to this monumental task of the NHL restart and the whole bubble process, planning process?
So it's my job. So at the NHL, one of my responsibilities is to run our event department. Our event department typically puts on the big outdoor games that you would see, the Winter Classic, the Stadium Series. We produce the All-Star Game, the draft, the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Anything that is a special, nationally televised, globally televised event, our event team, puts that on. And so when we were contemplating what we we're going to do in terms of coming back, sort of the onus, the job responsibility went to the event department at the NHL to come up with the plan. And then ultimately, once we got back to play, it was, our job to execute the plan. And so, yeah, it was part of the job, part of the territory. We welcome that. We enjoyed it. And obviously what we accomplished was unique.
Definitely. And in that planning process, what were the factors that were under consideration when making the final call between choosing the cities when you decided on Edmonton and Toronto?
Yeah, so one of the biggest considerations and the number one consideration was health and safety. For us, especially given what was going on in the world at the time, we wanted to go and play in the safest environment possible. And, we waited and waited and waited. You can remember we narrowed down to 10 cities, of which all were under consideration. And when I say they were under consideration, they all were in the running. And we were waiting to see, the COVID numbers, who was going to be the safest, where would we have the best chance to succeed? And by succeed, our goal was to get to the Stanley Cup final, to have one team be crowned the champion. And we weren't going to be satisfied unless we did anything other than that. So that was one consideration. Another, at the beginning, remember, we had 12 teams. So it was really important to find a city that could house 12 teams, and those are parties of 50 to 52 people, each team. So right there alone, we started with 600 people just representing the teams. And then when you look at the amount of staff we had, the workers from outside, the people that worked on the ground from the city, you were talking about over 1,000 people in each bubble. So you needed to find a spot that could, comfortably house all those people. And then we were playing 3 games a day. So you needed 6 locker rooms. You needed a big arena, an arena that could hold multiple teams, not just 2. And so, we broke down, some of those qualifications. Those were the major ones. There were a million other things that we were looking for, but that was the major considerations when we were choosing where we ultimately were going to go.
To piggyback off of that, there were 33,000 COVID tests that were administered over the 65 days and 130 games played with 0 positive results. What were the series of challenges that your team faced before the bubble began, during the exhibition games, and then were there any challenges during the duration of the playoffs to find that conclusion of the Stanley Cup?
Well, I think every day we face numerous challenges. I mean, none of us had ever done this before. So when there's no blueprint for how it should be done or how you get to the finish line safely. So Yeah, we learned a lot as we went along. We made very quick decisions. One of the things that we learned, and something that you guys should learn, especially, you know, at your age, sometimes experience is going to be the key to your success moving forward. You're going to do certain things. You're going to make mistakes along the way, but you're going to learn from them. And I think we did the same. Like we just kind of went with what we felt was right. Many of us had experiences, with something like this before, and we just made decision after decision. But every day there were challenges. Every day you had to come up with, a new way of doing things, or something that you thought was maybe a little conservative, a little safe, but was the right way to move forward in this type of environment. And we had a lot of big personalities that we had to handle, whether it were the players, front offices of the different teams. Every one of them needed to buy into our protocol, needed to understand that the only way that we were going to be successful is if everybody followed wearing masks, socially distancing, the less contact between people, the better. These were things that we really emphasized. And if it wasn't for the buy-in that we would receive from the players and the coaches and the general managers and all of the teams and our staff, I don't think we would have been successful. But everybody realized how important it was in order to get what we needed to get done. So, every day I would wake up and I'd go, yes, we got through yesterday, but ooh, we got to get through today. We would get the test results back and we'd go, yeah, we did it, another day. All right. But until the end, like it wasn't gonna make any of us happy until the end. But once we started to get into it, we started to see that we were going to be successful. You felt a little more comfortable. You felt like, man, we must be doing this right. But we also knew that it would take one positive test, excuse me, one positive test to change everything. And so, you always were on the lookout for that.
And even going down to breaking this down more, how did planning locker rooms and players dining at hotels, and how did all of that kind of get planned? Because it seems like something a lot of people would overlook, but those are still situations that have to be taken into account when trying to prevent an outbreak, if any, inside of a bubble environment.
So for one, I have the greatest team of professionals that I work with at the NHL that are amazing at what they do. And you mentioned a couple of examples. I mean, every detail, and I don't think people realize, and it's great that you brought that up, how many just fine details, like let's go into this restaurant and these tables need to be spaced out properly for social distancing. These chairs need to be spaced out. There's only going to be 4 people that will be allowed to sit at that table, 6 at that table. That kitchen needs to be scrubbed and cleaned. Those people need to be tested. Who is that person? Why is that person not credentialed? All these things needed to be worked out. And think about it. Everybody in that restaurant got tested. Everybody in the hotel got tested. All of that was all coordinated. It was a well-oiled machine. The people from the hotel went to this area to get their tests every day. And all those tests were recorded, and then we processed, and the next day we knew that person was tested. If they weren't tested or they didn't show up, we had a system where we would immediately call and say, hey Jack, you haven't been tested today, you got 1 hour, you got to get your butt down. We knew all of that, every little detail, all thought out, all really like thought about, like there was no detail that was left, not considered. We knew we had to be really on our game in order to make this work and work well from a health and safety standpoint. And then our doctor medical team and some of the folks from the league that now are on the medical team, they were also, they put a protocol together that was just so solid and was followed, and we knew that if we were going to have a positive test, we knew how we were going to handle that. But we also knew that to avoid a positive test, here were the things that we had to put in place to make sure that, we stayed safe.
So to segue to a different topic, another thing that you guys necessarily didn't have a blueprint on was creating an interactive fan experience for people to watch these NHL games with no fans in the stands. What did you and your team do to try to enhance this experience for fans at home?
So you said something very important right at the very end. You said fans at home. So, from day one, that was our consideration, our thought. Fans weren't going to be there. And believe me, we want fans. We need fans. And it's not the same. But because they weren't there and because they were going to be at home, we felt the most important thing was to cater to those who are going to be watching the games from their couch. And we could have gone silly, and I have to be careful because I don't want to give you too much into what I think of cardboard cutouts and virtual fans and some of the tricks that other leagues have done. But our philosophy was to build a set, essentially a television set. And I hate to say it, but we were playing in a studio. The rink was the studio, and welcome to a made for television event. And we love our reality shows. They're very well watched in American Ninja Warrior. I mean, I wish that the NHL had the ratings of American Ninja Warrior, but those are made for TV events, and people love the drama that's built, by getting the backstories on the competitors. The competition is shot in a really cool, up close and personal way. There's energy in the announcements, and the graphics are great. And we just felt like we could duplicate that with the NHL. And, we put up the big screens, and the big screens allowed us to show, awesome looking video of our players, highlight our star players, put their names in lights, essentially. The seat covers took away the empty seats. Essentially, you didn't see empty seats. You watch the NFL, every game, you look and there's a million empty seats. That's, again, okay. But we felt, why show an empty arena? We could show, essentially a really cool looking television set. And so, that was our approach. It was widely accepted. A lot of people loved it. And we were really proud of what we accomplished. And every single game changed with the colors of the teams, with the players, with the dynamic of the music we played in the arena. There were a lot of different things that we did that we were, again, well thought out, very professional team, amazing at what they do. We all worked together to sort of come up with the plan. The execution on a daily basis was awesome, amazing. And, we, again, really proud. We went a little different direction than other sports, but, I think if we have to do it again, we'll end up going in that direction rather than cardboard cutouts. Although you guys would look great in cardboard cutouts. If we did do that, we'd put your pictures in the stands.
I think you might be the only person that'll ever say that to me.
No, come on.
I'm gonna hold you to that. If you do cardboard cutouts,
Sammy, no problem. You're in.
Love it. Touching on the storylines and creative content, when games hadn't been played in hadn't been played in months since the pandemic began, how did you bring back that fan engagement?
So, we immediately realized that we had to keep the content ship moving forward. And we were like, okay, how are we going to do this? All of a sudden, March 12th, our office was closed, and March 13th, we're all at home, and we are actually saying, how can we still produce content? It just so happened that our producers, our editors, a lot of our production people had environments at home that were already set up. And then our IT department and production department, they got moving quickly so that all the footage that we have in servers and in our office could easily be accessed at their homes. We upgraded every one of our producers, editors to the highest level of internet we could possibly put in their homes. We bought them systems where they needed them so that they could edit at home, transmit at home, download from home, upload from home. And, suddenly within a week, I'm not kidding you, within a week, we had an up and running production company that was remote. We were so fast and advanced that our broadcast partners, and I'm talking about NBC and in Canada, Sportsnet, we for months were up and running before they even were remotely up and running. We were producing programming for NBC and for Sportsnet from the league so quickly and so much faster than they were. And I'll tell you, to this day, one of the aspects that I'm most proud of was how we got up and running so quickly at the NHL, and how we really didn't miss a beat when it came to content, whether it was long form content in the form of television programs or just, our players from their homes talking about their experience, messaging, wear your mask, social distance at that time, remember, wash your hands, all of that. We were out, and our players were super cooperative. Our players were really into it. They wanted to do more and more content. We started a trivia show. We started a show called Hockey at Home. We did a lot during that period of time, something like 60 hours of programming. And again, we felt like we couldn't miss a beat. Like we had to stay connected to our fans. We had to keep the puck moving, keep people interested, because when we came back, we felt like we had an advantage. Our fans knew what our players were up to, what they were doing. They would become more engaged, and then hopefully they would be more engaged once we started playing again, which at the outset, they certainly were.
That's really interesting. So from a production standpoint, you talked about the rink being the studio. So with having no fans, was there an innovative advantage in terms of filming a hockey game from different spots of the arena or from the rink where usually fans are in the way? Were you able to innovate any types of ways to shoot from a production standpoint?
Yeah, sure. So you're right. Without fans, and listen, we love our fans, but they sometimes get in the way. So when you want to put a camera here, but it's going to block a fan, that's our number one priority. But, imagine a world where, there's no blockage, there's nobody in the way, where you can put the camera in the best possible location. It was a very subtle difference that I think you guys, being in the media, would recognize because you've got a good eye for it. I don't know if everybody recognized it, but, our game camera, which is the camera that covers the action, it was in the best location. It was not in the normal location. We moved it so that it would give you the best look at the game. We brought cameras down. We had what's called a jitter camera. It's a jib, but it flew through the crowd, and where the crowd would have been, it would have knocked people's heads over if there were people there. But instead, we were able to do it because we were able to suspend it over the crowd. It would have been quite the insurance risk had a crowd been there. Forget hitting somebody in the head, but if it for any reason fell from the sky, it would have taken out, a whole section of people. These were the things that you were able to do because there were no fans. And, again, I felt being somebody who has been in television my whole life, like, wow, did we improve the television coverage? I think it was subtle in some ways, but it provided a better product for our fans to enjoy at home.
Do you see any of these innovative tactics or opportunities that you've implemented during this bubble kind of carrying forward into the future and being something that lasts for your broadcast?
I do. I think first of all, it's funny. I'll give you one example, which is probably not what you want to hear, because I think when I talk about new cameras, we're talking about fans coming back, and I don't think, we're going to be able to move cameras around because people have their seats. But I will say this: so the Islanders are building a new arena, and to give you an example of what they saw from the bubble, they've now reached out to us, and we're consulting with them on what were those best angles, because what they're doing is they're now building an arena around what we did. They're looking at, that was the perfect angle. That's where they're going to put their camera, and they'll have the ability to now build around. They'll put seats in these are the things that I think moving forward, especially with new buildings in Seattle, in Long Island, in other places, probably in the next however many years, as we all know, arenas come, they go. I think that you will have numerous changes based on what we did moving forward as people can build into this new environment. I also think that what we were able to do with the screens and how virtual is really becoming a huge part of telecasts and broadcasts. I think that putting virtual in the spaces that we had our screens is absolutely possible and something that is being considered. If we go back to arenas with fans, we're considering virtual being a big piece of the television coverage. And so I do think that bigness to the arena, being able to showcase statistics and player highlights in a really cool, very different way. Those are things that we'll take from what we just did, and it will continue.
So kind of on the flip side of that, how have these experiences in the bubble changed the way you look at creating content and have new projects that you're working towards?
I think what's happened since the pause, at least for the NHL, our players have never really warmed up to social media, never really loved being the center of attention. A hockey player grows up being part of a team. The locker room is everything. It's team over individual. And as you guys know, you cover sports, cover media. You guys know, these days it's about star power and, LeBron, and like just go through the names. I mean, we all know them, and the bigger the star, the bigger the ratings, the more money, the revenue, everybody's got that jersey. Our players haven't necessarily warmed up to it. What we did see during the pause was we saw players coming out of their shell. We learned about certain players being better personalities than others. And then we also said, hey, come on this show, do this interview, give us a tour of your house. Let's meet your girlfriend, your dog, your baby. And they were cool to it. And we saw a growth during the period of more of our players going on social media, opening up accounts in some cases, gaining followers. And I also think we also saw an acceptance. Players thought it was cool, and other players thought it was cool. And I think that's changing the dynamic, at least in our sport, a bit, so that we'll get more players to do things. It's not easy, it's not, and time is precious. These guys practice, they play hard, they want to win. They really do. I mean, one of the things that I laughed about in our bubble that I really had never been exposed to. I mean, I thought I was watching a high school tournament. Like they were going for the Stanley Cup, but sometimes I felt like, are they going after like some high school championship? Like their attitude was not, I have to explain this right, not professional. It was like they were little kids. Like the Stanley Cup means so much. And when they're focused and they want to win, man, that's it. That is all they're giving you. Like it's all about winning hockey games. And uniquely, I think that's the beauty of our sport. I do. But, you know, for a guy who's in charge of content, you want more and more players doing more and more content. So I thought that's something that came out of our pause that is going to improve us down the line. More players being more comfortable with cameras and doing more content.
Quick follow-up on that. How is working with someone and having someone like Paul Bissonnette helping the NHL bring these guys to the media and allow them to really express themselves, helped you guys kind of connect more with the players and allow them to, like you said, come out of their shells?
Yeah, listen, there's two ways of looking at this. There's things that we're going to produce. You know, when a league produces something, it's in our best interest. You know, we protect our players, but yet we want to do things that are really super, you know, interesting. You know, you want to tell great stories. You want to give access. We could get access at the league more than anybody. I mean, we have the keys to access. So what we could do is extremely valuable. And for a fan, you know, we open up, you know, a lot of doors. But we're gonna do things that are, you know, gonna be pretty down the line. You know, we're not gonna go too far to the left, too far to the right. Paul Bissonnette and others, you know, can take a really humorous look at things in a very unique way. I think Paul, you know, is extremely talented, has an amazing following, and we welcome that. Like he's not going to work, although he does a lot for the NHL and he does things for the NHL that are these heartwarming stories because he has a connection to our players that is unique and they love him. What he does on Spit and Chicklets, you know, is unique. You know, he's fun, he's irreverent, he goes in a direction that the NHL would never put under our banner, but yet, you know what? Good for him. And he has a following. And we love like going sort of outside our world a little bit and introducing celebrity, music, things that we think can get us more interest from casual fans or fans of whoever we're going to. You know, like, you know, if we do something with Snoop Dogg, you know, we're not only bringing in our fans who think that's cool and fun, but Snoop Dogg's fans or casual sports fans might take a look at us because of the uniqueness of the celebrity or the musician, or in Paul Bissonnette's case, you know, his following is with Barstool Sports, Spit and Chicklets. You know, that's great in some ways for us. You know, and so we love that, and you know, think he's super talented, and know that the players love to do things with him.
So speaking of bringing in other audiences to try to diversify and kind of just get it out to different people, the Ottawa Senators in this past NHL draft gave the late Alex Trebek the honor of announcing the third pick in a Jeopardy themed fashion. How do opportunities like that come about?
So uniquely in that particular instance, Eugene Melnick, who's the owner of the Ottawa Senators, he actually called me to say, I've got this idea and, you know, want to make sure, one, you're cool with it and what do you think of it? I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, who would say no to an idea like that?
And he went, no, of course. And he, but by the way, you'd be surprised.
Oh, okay.
No, but he went to Alex and to Jeopardy, And the idea came to life. It was awesome. He actually, by the way, and I was asked this last week because Alex passed, and I had a personal relationship with Alex, and he was amazing, and what a great fan of hockey, and what a great person, what a great guy. But he actually did 3 of those versions for any of 3 players. They knew they were picking third, and they knew that they were going to pick one of those 3. And so Alex actually did 2 other versions, which probably no one will ever see. There was so much craziness the night of the draft from the Ottawa Senators, because what happened was we, the NHL, were producing the draft with an NHL Network, and we had the 3 versions. And when they called to say their pick would be Tim Stützle, they wanted to make 1 billion% sure that we were going to roll the right version of his pick. Like, they were so nervous that we were going to show the wrong version. They called 40 times after they made their pick. Like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Is it okay? Is it okay? We obviously we rolled the right one. But those are great. Like, those are first of all, thinking out of the box. Like, and that's what we welcome from our team, from others. Like, yeah, give me the craziest idea. It's not so crazy, and let's see if we could potentially, if we could pull it off, it's going to gain attention. That is a moment that, yeah, hockey fans loved. But you know what? My mother saw it. And my mother doesn't watch a hockey game. It was the last thing on television. But she heard Alex Trebek did the pick, and she said to me, "Oh, I heard Alex Trebek made a pick for your draft." Those are the moments that sort of, for us, are as meaningful as any, because they now go outside of our unique bubble, per se, and they affect us in good ways, because people get a little attention. It gives us a little attention, and that's what we want.
How did the NHL and your decision making, how did you take advantage of the opportunity of holding a virtual draft this year, and kind of the window you had to spotlight the NHL and that draft process?
Yeah, so we knew very early on that we had to do it virtually. We didn't feel there was any chance that we were going to be able to travel all our people into one room, even if it was just the general managers. The travel back and forth, and remember, we have 7 teams in Canada. It's hard, and it's going to affect our next season as well. So we knew that we were going to have to take a virtual approach. We ended up watching all the other drafts. We watched the NFL draft, WNBA, Canadian Football League. I mean, we watched them all. And, we knew technically we were going to, with really smart people and a good plan, be able to pull it off. But it was a decision that we knew, we were going to have to do it this way. That was the only way we were going to be able to pull it off. Again, our technical team, amazing to be able in real time, forget the feeds and the cameras, but think about all the information that's involved with the draft. To be able to get all that, to all the teams and keep it safe, secure, pretty amazing. And it went really well. I do think there'll be talk about, is this the direction to go? You talk about, what's coming out of the bubble and what will we continue? The draft might be a good example. Teams loved being in their homes, in their home cities, drafting together, not having to travel. It could end up being the future of our draft. I'm sure it's going to be something we're going to all talk about. But, we were really proud of the way it ended up turning out. And, in this environment, it's the only way you can produce something like that.
So with things like the NHL draft being virtual and having the playoffs this year being in a bubble, how different was it in comparison to planning a Winter Classic games or Stadium Series or All-Star game? How different of a process was it? And reflecting on the bubble experience, what was the highlight for you?
So the difference is time. We have over a year to plan out and produce most of our events. We announce, for example, the Winter Classic on January 1st for the next year, but we've known for months before that we're going to, for instance, this year we were going to go to Minnesota, so we knew that early on, and so we plan over the course of the year, and here we had weeks. I mean, when we found out about Edmonton and Toronto, it was June the 30th. We traveled on July the 14th, and the teams came in on July 26th. So, we had a month. And that's the difference between now. I'm sitting here talking to you guys, and I have no clue what we're doing for this season. I don't. I mean, we have multiple plans that are being talked about, but I don't know. And I honestly don't know where I personally will be January 1st, January 15th. Who knows when we're going to start? We know we're not going to start earlier than January 1st, but that's the difference between now and what's going on. One, what you plan for today, tomorrow can be blown up and completely different because there's a COVID outbreak. You might have to, now go over here when you were going over there. And you better be nimble. You better be flexible. You better be, okay with a change, because if you're not, you're in deep trouble. And for all our other events, we have so much time to prepare, and there's so many different aspects, of all these, and they're different. When we're preparing an all-star game, for instance, now you have your skills event. We work a lot on what that's going to be, what are the events that are going to be in there, how that all works. We have our music, which is a big part of All-Star Weekend, and that's the intermission and how we're going to present it. We have our openings and our intros, and then we have the games themselves, but here, now we're planning for like health and safety and, preparing meals for 1,000 people, like things that are completely different. So as similar as they are, it's as different as they happen to be. And it's a sign of the times, and no way is the right way or the best way, but it is a unique period of time we're living in right now. One of the things I will say, which I think is interesting for you guys, your audience, we were in Edmonton, and our group was pretty small, maybe 15 people on the core events team, and we had a dinner the night before the season started. So we had been there for a couple of weeks. Everybody had sort of come to town, and I said, let's get one more dinner, because we knew once the games were going to start, our time to socialize or have dinner together was probably never going to happen again. So we had this dinner, and everybody was talking about how unique it's been, and there were a lot of people on our team that are closer to your age than my age, and I just turned to everybody and I said, I'm going to tell you this right now. You're going to work as long as I have in this business, and you will never, ever have an event, have a memory like you're about to have for the next 70 days or whatever it ended up being. I mean, this is going to be so unique, so different, so incredible. And everything you do from now on, you'll compare it to this, or you'll rehash a story from what you're about to do. And I don't know if people would appreciate it sometimes. You do an event, like I did an event when I was in my 20s, big deal, but I still talk about it today. But when I was doing it, I wasn't thinking of that term. And I think that's something that's really unique about what we accomplished. It was just how different it was because of how different these times are.
So outside of these opportunities and experiences that you've had with the NHL, what are a couple other memorable experiences that you've had in your career? Obviously, they don't match up to what you've just experienced with this bubble and possibly the near future, but what are some other things that you can remember?
Oh, well, I mean, I can go on all day. I mean, 5 or 6 Olympics. I mean, I've been around the world 12 times. I am so fortunate. I've had, a really cool career. I've gotten to do something that I have loved from day one. I've done different aspects of it, but I wake up every day going, man, this is really super cool what I do, and I can't wait to get going. I think that's really important in life. It's just, you want to have fun. If you can make a part of your life, which is work, fun. I mean, think about how much time you put into work, and I've been very fortunate. I worked at IMG for 20 years before I came to the NHL. Before that, freelanced and worked as on air. I did what you guys are doing. By the way, you guys are really good. I mean, these are great questions.
Thank you.
Very well done. And I've been fortunate to have had experience. I mean, when I say I can go on and on and on, because I've been able to do some really cool things. And, big events, met really cool people along the way, celebrities, music, just been very, very fortunate. And, I've had good moments, bad moments. I was the producer of the Steve Harvey screw up in the Miss Universe pageant. I've had those type moments, but I've produced opening ceremonies for Olympics, and I've done cool things like that. So in the end of the day, I appreciate everything, good or bad. If it's bad, you learn from it. If it's good, you try to make it better. That's the way we roll, and it's been fun. It will continue to be fun. As I always say, the best is still to come. I haven't had my best moment yet. We're still waiting for that one.
So one of our final questions, and one of the really cool events that you've had the honor of producing, is the New York City Marathon. Now, what's the scale of that type of production? How many camera setups? How many cameras? How does that differ from something like an NHL game or just anything else that you've been a part of?
So I will just say this, and by the way, thank you for recognizing that. See, good questions. It is the most underrated television show in all of sports. I'm just going to say that. So one year we have a director. His name is Bruce Troy. He's now done 25 marathons. He's unbelievable. And the reason why I'm telling you this story. So one year I think had 89 or 90 cameras, right? So we did a thing where I hired somebody to sit in the back of the truck, and every time he called a camera 82, they would put a tally mark next to the camera. And he used all 89 cameras.
Wow.
He used them all, every one of them. Amazing. And that's another thing that happens a lot. The Super Bowl, they've got 100 cameras. They use 60 of them. That is the most impressive piece of the marathon was the signals the transmitting of signals from the ground to the TV trucks for 26.2 miles. And one of the things you do is you have to put receivers on all the buildings. And in New York City, it's really an interesting process. And we had a guy whose job was to like go to a building in Brooklyn and ask if he could put a receiver on the top of the building, and the landlord would go, "Yeah, I'll do it. Give me $10,000." You know, it was like literally payola, because we had to have these receivers in order to transmit the signals. We got, as years went on, we started using helicopters that would trail the bikes, and that's how the signals would be transmitted. But again, from an engineering standpoint, unbelievable production. And as storytelling, it was, you know, nobody knows these runners, you know, and suddenly you're trying to give them, you know, some really, you know, human interest stories, make people want to cheer for them, want to, you know, hope that they would cross the finish line first. Yeah, it was a cool production. I think I did maybe 20 of them by the time I left IMG. And those, we had some stories. We had a hurricane cancel one. We did one right after 9/11. I mean, you know, those were memorable moments in my career. The one after 9/11, that was the first event where, like, people, the base, a lot has been made of the World Series, which I think was spectacular. But remember, that was the first time, you know, hundreds of thousands of people gathered on the streets of New York after a terrorist attack to watch the marathon in November of that year. And that was some event. Amazing. And it just showed that New Yorkers were back. And as a, you know, one of the things I loved about the marathon was how it uniquely brought a whole city together.
That's really cool. My final question for you, and I just want to first off thank you for coming on the podcast. This has been awesome for Jackie and I. And your stories have just been so interesting and great, and your insight on the industry. What is a piece of advice you'd give to current college students who have a passion for creating sports media content?
Boy, you just said it, Sammy. Like, you just used the word passion. So what I tell everyone that's your age, that's in college, including my daughter, who right now is a senior, who's about to enter the working world, man, if you love something, especially if you want to get into sports media, don't be afraid to show your passion. Don't be afraid to, like, do whatever it takes to get that gig, to get in the door. And passion is everything. Like, when I sit there and I'm about to hire somebody, you know, if they walk in the room and I'll say, "Hey, so what do you like about the NHL?" "Oh, I like it. I like hockey. I watch hockey." "Oh, really? What do you like about hockey?" "Oh, it's a really good game. It's very exciting." And then the next person walks in the room and they'll say, "This is my dream. I would want to work for the NHL. I wanted to work for the NHL since I was 5 years. I love hockey. I've gone to who am I hiring? Come on, who am I hiring?" And I don't care whether their grades were, you know, season D. Like, that says this person's going to want to be here. This person's going to want to learn. This person's going to get up every morning and run to work. That, to me, is the difference for somebody graduating, getting a job, and not getting a job. And so my advice is, when you walk in that room and you have that one opportunity to talk to somebody, man, show them how much you want it, you know, show them how much this would mean to you. And then once you're in, you're in. You know, that's going to be up to you, to anybody in your audience, to prove that you could do the job. But it's really hard to get the first job. It's not simple. And one of the pieces of advice I tell everybody is, you know, passion with a capital P, and you'll be okay.
Thank you. Jack, do you want to close out this podcast?
Yeah, this has been absolutely amazing. Again, like Sam said, thank you for taking time to do this. As always, guys, you know the drill, not the same time, same place. We will see you guys later.